Well, hey, and welcome back to Focus. We're at the end of our worry and anxiety series, and today we're going to be diving into some really practical, really simple steps that you can implement to help you to manage your worry and anxiety. So these things, they may seem really simple, but actually often it's the simple things that are done consistently over time which make the biggest difference. Now, the first one is to get your worries and anxieties on paper, to write them down, just to get them out of your head, to give yourself a little bit of headspace, and it also will help you to process your thoughts in a completely different way, which is quite useful. It's actually very similar to what David does in the Psalms and also what the writer of Lamentations does. I'm just going to read you from Lamentations chapter 3, verses 17 to 22. Peace has been stripped away, and I have forgotten what prosperity is. I cry out, my splendor is gone. Everything I had hoped for is lost. The thought of my suffering and homelessness is bitter beyond words. I will never forget this awful time, as I grieve over my loss. Yet I still dare to hope when I remember this. The faithful love of the Lord never ends. His mercies never cease. So the writer of that is actually just expressing the way that he's feeling, the things that are going on in his head, and he's just writing that down, letting it out, and actually using it as a prayer to God. And that's something that you can do too. Lamentations 5, if you go a little bit further on, is very similar, and I just love the rawness of it, the authenticity that's behind it, and just the honesty that he's able to express in that. Maybe for you that looks like writing a poem, writing a journal, maybe even just not necessarily writing anything that particularly makes sense, just getting words out which you're feeling and just putting them onto a bit of paper to clear up a bit of space for you to think about other things. So that's the first thing. Secondly, really simply, you can eat well. Now, hey, again, this sounds really basic, but in 1 Kings chapter 19, Elijah is literally afraid for his life. Jezebel is out to kill him, so what does Elijah do? He decides that he's going to flee, and he goes into the wilderness. He finds a tree, and he sits underneath it, and basically tells God that he's had enough. He says this, I have had enough, Lord. Take my life, for I am no better than my ancestors who have already died. So this guy is literally at the end of his tether. He has had enough, and he's expressing that to God. But I love what happens next. Basically, in the story, Elijah goes to sleep underneath a tree, as you do, and an angel appears and wakes him up and basically tells him to eat and to drink. So the angel sorts out the food, it's just there. Elijah wakes up, he eats, he drinks, he goes back to sleep, and then the same thing happens again. He gets woken up a second time and is literally just told to eat more. Now, there's ongoing research into the importance of a balanced diet and the effect that that has on us mentally, the effect that it has on our mood, and actually quite often when we're in a situation where we feel worried or we feel anxious, what we tend to do sometimes is to just eat really badly because we're trying to kind of pick ourselves up a little bit, make ourselves feel better. But actually by doing that, we can sometimes have the completely wrong effect and actually do something which isn't going to help us long term. Thirdly, we can remember to rest. Remember to rest. Now, that's actually one of the 10 commandments, as I'm sure you're aware of. It's to observe the Sabbath and to keep it holy. Now, interestingly, the word rest is mentioned in the NIV translation of the Bible 508 times. Now, that's a lot of times that the word rest is used, and that just really signifies the importance of rest in our lives. Now, I've done a whole series on rest before, so I'm not going to talk any more about rest, but that is something we can also do. The fourth thing you can do is exercise. You are created by a God who loves you and cares for you and has made you very complex. One of the complex things that happens when you exercise is your body secretes endorphins. Now, these are chemicals, and they're often referred to as the feel-good neurotransmitters. And basically, these endorphins help you to feel more positive. They help you to have an increased sense of energy and also to reduce stress. All good things when you're trying to lower your worry and anxiety levels. The last thing that we're talking about today that you can do is to invite God to walk with you daily. 1 Timothy 4 verse 8 says this. It says, "For physical training is of some value, but godliness has value for all things." There are other verses in the Bible which talk about pursuing godliness. But how do you actually pursue godliness? It's by inviting God into your everyday setting, by inviting Him to walk with you on a daily basis and to submit to His leadings in that day, in that moment, but to continue to do that. Because from God comes peace, comes a sense of love, comes a sense of identity as a child of the King, which is exactly what you are today. These are not the only things you can do to be able to reduce your levels of worry and anxiety, but we do hope the ones that we've touched on have been able to help you wherever you're at today.